Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gaetano. Hi, everyone. My name is Hind. I am a program lead and designated safeguarding lead at the Kids Network. And we have here Neve as well, who is the volunteer recruitment lead from the Kids Network, and Priya, who is the school's partnerships lead at the Kids Network. We also have two of our amazing mentors who will be taking part in the final section of this meeting, Audrey and Richie. So we are looking forward to talk to you today. We will start by a brief description of our program, what it does, and then we will talk a little bit about early intervention and the theory behind our program design and the importance of early intervention. And we will have then a panel discussion with two of our mentors, as mentioned. And towards the end, we will leave an amount of time for questions, but please feel free to leave questions throughout the session, and then towards the end, we will talk through them with you. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. We will start with Neve.
Hi, everyone. So I want to basically start by asking you to think about one adult from your childhood who really believed in you. So not necessarily a parent, but maybe a teacher, a coach, an aunt, an uncle, a neighbor, basically someone outside of your immediate family who really saw you or showed up for you consistently or reliably. And now I want you to imagine that you never had that person. So imagine growing up in London, surrounded by opportunities that you don't always have access to, facing difficulties such as loneliness, bullying, poverty, and poor mental health. That's the reality for thousands of children in London right now. And that's the reality that we, as the Kid Network, exist to change. So, a bit of wider context about why we exist. According to the Mental Health Foundation, 50% of mental health concerns can be diagnosed before the age of 14. And that's why our program's focused on early intervention, supporting children before they reach crisis point. So many children can't access mental health services until a crisis occurs, leaving them without support. And our mentoring program provides that early support, helping children to build resilience and well-being before problems escalate. So 1 in 5 children aged 8 to 16 have a mental health problem, which is nearly double the rate than when we started in 2017. The children most affected by this are overwhelmingly those who face the most barriers in other parts of their life, such as poverty, children from minoritized communities, and also children who have experienced trauma. At the Kids Network, we don't wait for a crisis, we step in before one. And we do it through a really simple intervention, one adult, one child, 1 to 3 hours a week. So we were founded in 2016 in response to growing levels of isolation in London communities. We currently work across 11 London boroughs, and we support children aged 8 to 11 years old through a crucial time in their development, supporting them before and through that transition from primary school to secondary school. And we do this by matching them with a volunteer mentor from their local community who supports them in one-to-one weekly sessions for the duration of 1 year. Sessions last between 1 to 3 hours, which averages about 60 hours of mentoring throughout the year, which can be really transformational for the child. And we've reached around 1,500 children since we started. And in 2025, we reached 192 children with over 4,000 hours of sessions. So a bit of background about the children that we support. So we're basically partnered with primary schools across the 11 boroughs that we work with them. All the boroughs that we work in have a higher than average child poverty rate, with Islington and Tower Hamlets being some of the highest rates in the country. And each of these schools have a number of spaces, and they refer the children that they think would most benefit from having a mentor. We also get additional referrals through social workers and early family help teams as well. And we support children from a whole range of backgrounds and experiences who might need some additional support. There is no typical child on the programme. Some might be struggling with low confidence or self-esteem, or facing loneliness, and others may be young carers or have a sibling with disabilities, or some might have experienced adverse childhood experiences, or who might specifically be needing a bit of additional support. And what they all share is a need for consistent, trusted connection with a caring adult, and that's exactly what our mentors provide. Oh, you're muted, Hand.
Thank you. Thanks, Dave. Now we will talk a little bit about the theory behind our program, which, as Dave described it, is a form of early intervention. So, what is early intervention? Early intervention is a form of support aimed at improving outcomes for children or preventing escalating need or risk. Sometimes it's referred to as prevention or preventative services. These services are part of a continuum of support, so they don't work in isolation, they work in collaboration with other services that are supporting the family and the child. Early intervention services can be provided at any stage in baby's, child's, or even young person's life. The key thing is that it comes in before the risk escalates. Uh, so it could be from early years right through to adolescence. And these services can be delivered to parents, children, or whole families. We will talk more specifically about community mentoring as a form of relational early intervention. So, community mentoring is a form of early intervention that supports children and young people to build safe, supportive relationships with a trusted adult to help them overcome adversity, trauma, and thrive. It is reciprocal, it's purposeful, non judgmental, and it helps young people improve their well being, develop skills, and achieve personal goals and outcomes. Now we will talk about, if you could move to the next slide, please. Yeah, we did. Thank you. Now we'll talk a little bit about the importance of relational early intervention, specifically community mentoring, why it is such an important form of early intervention. In simple words, it has an impact on reducing loneliness. Children are often surrounded by people, other children, teachers, family, and so the concept of children feeling lonely is not something that we might think about. Loneliness is often considered an issue impacting adults. However, the first statistics reported by the UK Office of National Statistics on loneliness, uh, it was collected using Community Life Survey in 2016-2017, was a surprise. The age group who were the loneliest were those aged 16 to 24 years. In addition, 11% of children aged 10 to 15 years and 14% of those aged 10 to 12 years said that they were often lonely. A policy manager at the Children's Society said in reporting, the idea of being alone or isolated is challenging, as children themselves recognize loneliness doesn't mean that there is no people around. It just means that you don't feel you're connecting with them and that you are not having good relationships with them. And there are many reasons for why young people are feeling lonely. I'll just mention a couple of them. As much as we don't like going back to it and remembering it, the pandemic, COVID-19, although it did not create loneliness among young people, it significantly accelerated and enriched existing vulnerabilities, especially when lockdowns coincided with critical transitional life stages for them, such as transitioning from primary school to secondary school or going through any other significant life changes. And loneliness in young people is not a temporary phase that can be ignored because it coincides with a critical period in which they are forming their sense of self, confidence, identity, and belonging. So when loneliness does take place, it does have a damaging impact on undermining young people's confidence and reinforcing negative self-beliefs, shaping how people see and shaping how they see their place in the world. Another major contributing factor to loneliness amongst young people is the diminishing availability of third spaces, which we try to recreate through mentoring and getting children to go out in the community with their mentors to find those or even create those third spaces. And these are informal places outside of the home environment and outside of the structured school environment where connection can develop naturally. So this leads us to kind of the answer of why community mentoring is important. It builds brain architecture. So positive and consistent early relationships stimulate healthy neurodevelopment, improving emotional regulations, stress resilience, and cognitive flexibility. It also buffers toxic stress. So having secure attachments at an early age act as a powerful buffer against negative impacts of trauma, adversity, and toxic stress on child's developing biology. Also, it empowers caregivers and children by working around the child and the family as a non-statutory, non-judgmental service that is only there to support. And there is a lot of research that says that it improves lifelong outcomes. It shows that early relational intervention supports social and emotional well-being, as well as physical health, including immune and cardiovascular vascular function throughout life. So if we could move to the next slide, please, Neve. So we are going to talk next about when does early intervention work best. So the simple answer is it's where it targets key outcomes, starting with the main domains of child development. And these domains are, we'll start with the physical development. Physical development involves child's physical health, maturation, and the presence or absence of physical disability. And it provides the basis for positive development in all other areas. For example, physical outcomes targeted by early intervention activities include decreasing childhood obesity. So think of when the child is out and about in the community playing football with their mentor or going for a walk in the park or thinking about the choices that they make. Can you think of an example of a positive outcome community mentoring could have on children's physical development? You can leave your answer in the chat or unmute yourself if you prefer to do so. That is fine. You can have a longer think about it. And if you think of any other examples, please do leave them in the chat. Later on, as the session goes on, the second aspect, playing a new sport or a hobby. Yeah, absolutely. Uh, the second one is cognitive development. So this includes children's acquisition of speech, language skills, and their ability to read and write, their numeracy capabilities, and their understanding of logical problem solving. Positive cognitive development is strongly associated with a child's success in school and entry into the workforce. So typically, uh, it's targeted by early intervention. This includes performance on standardized tests, school achievement, and higher education and employment opportunities once they leave school. I can see something in the chat. Better sleep, yeah, absolutely. Probably reduced stress could lead to better sleep. Uh, and then we'll talk a bit around behavioral development. This involves children's ability to monitor and regulate their own behavior, attention, and impulses. This includes children's self-regulatory skills, which are highly associated with their ability to form positive relationships with others, as well as their success in school. Behavioral self-regulation difficulties during childhood are highly predictive of children's involvement in criminal activity during teenage years and adulthood. And as you can see, we are making the case for early intervention as a cost-effective way of supporting young people. Can you think of any other example of positive outcome community mentoring could have on behavioral development? I'll give you one example. For example, reducing antisocial behavior and crime. Also reduces violence and aggression at school. I'll leave the question with you to think about it as well. And the final aspect is social and emotional development. This involves children's awareness of their own emotional needs and the emotional needs of others. So social and emotional development encompasses the development of children's self-esteem and their ability to manage negative feelings. And this is strongly associated with children's ability to form positive relationship with others, as well as reduced risk of depression and other mental health outcomes. Early intervention outcomes associated with children's social and emotional development include increasing pro-social behavior, improving self-esteem, reducing incidence of clinically diagnosed mental health problems, And just in general, early intervention targets other areas, not just these areas. These could be threats to child's development, which are strongly associated with adverse outcomes during adolescence and adulthood, such as child maltreatment, substance misuse, and risky sexual behavior. Now, we talked quite a bit on the impact on the child. Uh, as beneficial as it is for individual, early intervention can also help build healthier, happier, and more productive communities, and can produce a range of economic benefits to society that significantly outweigh the cost of intervening. For example, higher employment rates and long-term savings to health, social care, and criminal and social security systems. If we can move to the next slide, please, Neil. We will now talk a little bit around the principles of relational early intervention, community mentoring specifically, and how we implemented those in the design of our program at the Kids Network. So these are the principles that ensure that early intervention in the form of community mentoring is at its best effective mode. The first one is around collaboration, mapping out support to understand interactions and outcomes. Mentoring programs need to work within the whole system that's supporting the child and the family, and as part of it, ensuring constant communication, sharing of progress updates, as well as safeguarding concerns. Now, how do we implement this at the Kids Network? We receive full referral information from schools that include the child's history of any concerns, their emotional well-being, their familiar connections, any adverse childhood experiences that they've gone through. And when we receive these referrals, we risk assess them in collaboration with the school and any other services that are working with the child and around the family. We regularly send the school and social workers, any other organizations that are working with the child. We send them progress reports. We take part in team around child meetings, child in need meetings, and any other related meetings where we share the child's experience on this informal program and get feedback from them on what areas we can potentially focus on. We share also any safeguarding concerns, and we collaborate in responding to these concerns. So sometimes how this looks like from our side is we provide the mentor with resources on how to handle this conversation if it comes up, or how to support the child emotionally to process this negative feeling that they've had, or this situation that they are going through at school or at home. And as I said, we work in collaboration with other services around the child and family. We never work in isolation from them. The second principle is having a flexible program that allows tailored support. We will come to the questions at the end just to confirm how we implement this at TKN. So structured programs, structured community mentoring programs that allow flexibility are proven to be the most effective in supporting young people. So we have an overall program structure that is fixed, which is the duration. It's 12 months, the consistency. It is a weekly program. The structure itself, the first 3 months are for removing barriers, for getting the child familiar with their mentor and this new relationship. And then the second stage is setting goals. So they set goals based on their interests with their mentor. And there is this structure, there's this framework that the pair work within. However, within this structure, we allow for a lot of program adaptations. So this allows for individualization in relation to the child's need. For example, in terms of session length, location, who they're matched with, how they spend their monthly budget, the goals that they set, and how they choose to go about them. And then giving children and the third principle is giving children and young people autonomy over the form and purpose of their mentoring. And how we implement this, as Neve mentioned, it is a child-led program. And this starts as early as the child choosing who they want to be matched with. So our program managers go to schools, they speak to the child, they ask them to tell us who they are in their own words and who they want their mentor to be and what they want their mentor to be like. So we take that into account in our matching process. We take into account the relatability factors and any lived experiences. And they also lead on sessions, they lead on goals, and we collect child's voice throughout the program. And child's voice that we collect throughout the program informs the structure of the program, informs the resources that we create, and any developments that we do. Carefully, the fourth principle is carefully matching mentors and mentees, considering interests, experiences, and personal attributes. I talked a bit about that, but we match pairs based on what the child asked for, as I said in the induction session, on the referral reasons and the level of need, as well as the mentor's RAG rating. So we have a system where we RAG rate the mentors based on their experiences and their skill level. And we follow the national threshold document to identify the child level of need and support that they need. And we match them according to all of these factors. The final principle is target mentoring support at young people who lived through adverse childhood experiences. As we said, we receive our referrals mainly from schools, sometimes from other practitioners. We also work with some virtual schools who support children who are in foster care or in the care system in general. And we advise that they refer children who fall into level 2 or 3 on the national threshold document. So the national threshold document divides forms of support into 4 levels. The first level is universal, as in the support that all children receive. It's not targeted, it's not specific to any child or family. Then you have level 2 and 3. There is a need, targeted support is needed, but it's not yet at a specialized support level. So this is the space, the ultimate space for early intervention support to come in. And this is where we recommend that schools choose who they're referring based on. And then there is level 4, which is advanced, which means that specialist support and intervention is required at this stage. And this is the stage that we want to prevent children and families from getting to by intervening early while they are still on a level 2 or level 3. And we have some learnings from this. By implementing these principles, we found that children are a lot more engaged in the program because they took part in choosing how this experience is, how it's structured. And we found that they're a lot more likely to be consistent and to want their weekly sessions. We sometimes receive negotiations from children trying to extend the program in exchange for £10, for example. We don't accept these, just to be very clear about it. But children are a lot more engaged, families are a lot more engaged because this provides a non-judgmental space that they take part in forming. If we could please move to the next slide, Neve. Now we will talk a little bit about barriers to accessing these services. While we talked a bit about the benefits of early intervention as a whole and mentoring specifically, we as organizations that work in early intervention, we need to keep in mind the barriers to access that exist so that we can do our best to remove them. So some of these barriers are systematic and structural issues, such as the limited availability and funding. So there is reduction in funding, which has led to closures of children's centers and reduced capacity for services like health visiting, for example. And then we have postcode lottery. Significant regional disparities exist in services availability and quality as well. And sometimes the issue is complex systems that are very difficult for families to navigate or understand. So they choose not to take part at all. There are also some workforce shortages. There is lack of staff who lead these services. So this could lead to rushed appointments sometimes, lack of outreach, and high staff turnover, which I think is something the charity sector specifically knows a lot about. There are some financial and social barriers as well, such as poverty and cost. Low-income families cannot afford transport or childcare to attend services. A live example, we had a caregiver where the child was selected for a scholarship in a football club to go and practice, but she rejected that because she will have to pay for transport and they could not afford the transport fees. So this could be a big barrier to families accessing support. There is also something around stigma and trust. Some caregivers might be wary of home visits or fearful of the stigma that comes with my child needs support, or uncomfortable discussing financial hardships or developmental concerns about their children. Another issue could be the fragmented care, which we mentioned in principles that we're trying to avoid. So that could look like the lack of or poor communication between services. So this prevents family from receiving holistic support. Some additional challenges could look like delays in diagnosis. Long waiting lists for assessment can delay access to tailored services. Language and communication could be a barrier as well for identifying the need and accessing support. And lower parental educational and financial attainment and income are significant predictors as well of difficulty in accessing services. So research also suggests that some children are less likely than others to receive the early intervention that they need. Those include Black and mixed heritage boys, babies born into care, adolescents in care proceedings, and children with mental health needs. So what we try to do as much as we can at the Kids Network to combat this is encouraging schools to refer children who have these specific needs or come from those specific backgrounds. And we try to create resources and training for our mentors to be able to deal with this if they are matched with a child from this specific background. Can you think of ways that we can address some of these barriers? Could be us as the Kids Network, general services in the UK. Do you have any thoughts about how we can address these? Okay, in that case, we can move to our mentors discussion. We have Audrey and Richie, if you'd like to unmute yourselves. You are both also Hend, which is May because I sent you my link. So uh,
Just before we get into the mentor discussion, we're just going to go
oh,
over
sorry,
some
yes.
impact. That's okay, no worries. So I'm just going to start by talking through a bit of our impact from our 2025 impact report and the kind of more details of our program of how we achieve this impact. So, as Hen's spoken about, our mentors really focus on the individual needs of the child, so supporting them during this crucial stage. And because our program is completely child-led, mentors are working with the child to figure out what they want to spend their time together doing. So whether it's playing games in the cafe, playing football in the park, exploring London through sightseeing or visiting museums, our mentors really help to build the child's confidence and resilience through these series of really fun and positive experiences. So you can see here some of our wonderful impact stats from the 2025 impact report. And these changes really come from the children having a stable and consistent adult in their life outside of school and home that can help them by encouraging them, letting them lead, encouraging them to make decisions, and also through setting child-led goals as well. And at the Kids Network, there's no such thing as a goal that's too small, and goals look completely different for every child. So some common goals that we get to help build confidence might be working up to order their own drink in a cafe or pay for their own snacks at the supermarket or something like that. And then other things may be more personalized or activity based, like visiting all the London tube stops or trying however many different flavors of bubble tea and all that kind of stuff as well. And through these personalized goals and having someone there that's really encouraging their interests and celebrating their achievements, that's where we see this amazing impact, such as the rise in confidence and the rise in pride in themselves as well. And as well as our yearly impact reports, we're approaching our 10th year as a charity, and we really wanted to answer a question that funders always ask us, which is, does it last? And so it's one thing, I guess, to show that a child feels more confident at the end of a mentoring year. And then it's another thing to show that the change endures and that it stays with them into secondary school, into adolescence, and also into their life beyond that. So we recently commissioned Impact Ed, which is an independent education evaluation organization. Why is that such a mouthful? To go and speak to the children themselves. So young people that had been on our program, some of them many years ago, and they asked them what had changed and what stayed changed and why. And this wasn't self-reported from us, it was an independent longitudinal research using a methodology called the most significant change. And this methodology basically prioritizes young people's words over fixed response surveys. So it asked them, in their view, what the most significant thing that shifted was. And what they told Impact Ed was amazing. I'm going to go over a short snapshot of it through one of their stories. So I want to tell you about a boy named Daniel. So in primary school, Daniel only had one friend, not because he didn't want more, but because he had never quite been able to read how conversation worked. He would talk at people rather than with them, he said, and he just couldn't find the rhythm of conversation, and therefore he just wasn't making many friends. And when he met his mentor was not running social skills workshops, of course. He didn't teach Daniel a curriculum. He just talked with him about anything and everything. And that was happening every week for a year. And over the course of that year, without realizing it, Daniel was learning. And so I'm just going to read out a quote here from Daniel. With my mentor, I talked with him a lot. So I learned this is how I'm supposed to sound. That helped me talk more in school. I felt like the main thing he did is help me to transition to secondary school. I didn't normally do many social interactions, and then exploring with my mentor, I socially interacted with him in proper conversations. This helped me know when to talk, when not to talk. So when Impact Ed spoke to Daniel, the contrast that he talked about between his primary school self and himself now was stark. He was telling them about how he's got a best friend that lives on his road. At school, he's got a small, close group of friends, and then he's also got a larger group of friends as separately for when he doesn't want one-to-one conversation and just wants to hang out in a big group. And he described this all so matter of factly, as if it was just simply how things were, that he just had all these amazing friends. And I love this quote from him here. I went from being the weird kid to just being a kid. I understand my past self, but I definitely prefer who I am today. And so, just through this one relationship for 1 year, it was a child who was looking from the outside in, but now knows how to build that connection with other people. And so, just a few of the things that the impact evaluation really taught us. It could really be clustered within 5 main themes. So, firstly, it was that the children that we support don't just improve during the program, they keep improving after it ends. So, their capacity for agency, for setting goals, for taking risks, for persisting through difficulty grows and strengthens even after our program ends and we take a step back. So, their mentor's encouragement becomes a part of how the child talks to themselves. And secondly, emotional regulation. So these young people, with the help of their mentor throughout the year, build a toolkit for managing their anxiety and reframing difficulty and finding steadiness when things feel overwhelming. So years later, after the program ends, they are still using that toolkit and calling back on the skills that they learn throughout the program without anyone prompting them. And thirdly, so safety. Every other improvement really flows from that one foundation, and that's that the child felt safe with their mentor. They didn't feel judged or assessed or managed, they felt accepted. And in a world where many of these children experience very little consistent safety, this is really rare and can be really transformative. And fourth, relationships. So, having experienced what it feels like to open up with a trusted adult, these children went on applying that. They became more open with friends, more open with family, and less likely to carry any difficulty alone. And this capacity for connection, learned through that one relationship, really spread outwards into other areas of their life. And then, lastly, and perhaps most importantly, the impact did not vary by gender or ethnicity. So, we live in a city where life outcomes are still profoundly shaped by who you are and where you come from. But this program appears through this impact study to work equitably. So, across every background, every identity, every gender, the outcomes are equal, and that's not common. And I think that's a direct result of the fact that every session is child led and led by the child themselves. And I guess behind each one of these findings and all the statistics and theme and conclusion that we got from the Impact Ed report is a person. So, a person who gave up their time and who showed up every week to a child that they didn't know before, who explored their city alongside a child who didn't have anyone to explore it with them before that. And it shows that the evidence of just having this one-on-one mentor relationship can really change lives. And then lastly, on the impact, obviously our program is there to support our wonderful mentees, but we're incredibly proud of the impact that our program can have on our mentors as well. So this is from our 2025 impact report as well. So it found that 88% of mentors reported a positive effect on their well-being, and every single mentor said it strengthened their belief that they can create a positive change in society. And I think this really reflects what our program offers, that mentors can spend dedicated, purposeful time with their mentee each week and build a really genuine relationship. And I think in a city where it's easy to feel really disconnected, having that regular commitment to a person and their local community can be really transformative. And 100% of mentors also came away with a better understanding of issues affecting children today. And 57% also said that the program positively influenced their career growth. So for those of our mentors working or moving towards fields like education, psychology, or any sort of child-facing role, the sustained one-to-one nature of our program really offers a unique experience with also ongoing support and feedback and reviews with a dedicated program manager as well. And I think overall, whether mentors are new to London or have lived here for years, mentors have really told us that the programme has helped them to feel more rooted and purposeful and connected to the city around them. I think this quote on the right here really brings that to life about the mentor sharing that during the difficult period in their life, seeing their mentees' energy and positivity gave them hope and helped them to stay positive themselves. And I think this mutual uplift is something we see again and again and is really a core part of what makes our program special, and that mentoring isn't just about giving, but is actually a two-way relationship as well. Which leads us on to our panel discussion with our mentors. So we're really excited to introduce Audrey and Richie again. So if you just want to introduce yourselves, and then we'll get into a few questions.
Sure. Shall I go first? Can you hear me okay? Yeah?
Yes.
Perfect. So yeah, my name's Richie. I'm a 52-year-old male, and I joined the mentoring program basically for threefold. The first was I benefited from a mentor in a very prominent stage of my journey, and they offered me guidance, and more important, I felt listened to and understood. And I always wanted to return that at some point. Also, I would say I came to London in 2012, and I was amazed by its vibrancy, its multicultural, and everything it had to offer. And recently, probably about a year and a half ago, just before I started the program, I saw that there was a wedge being kind of pushed between all that, and I wanted just to play my part in stabilizing and neutralizing all that kind of what I would say is unease that I kind of thought was going through London. also, yeah, I was at a time in my life where mentoring just not only for me, but I felt for someone else would benefit from my life experience and my guidance. And I work in a counselling environment now, and a lot of what we see through clients, what they're presenting, is from an area of their childhood where they didn't feel listened to or didn't feel engaged. So I wanted to kind of address that as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Richie. And Audrey?
Hello, my name is Audrey. I am relatively new to London. I moved here about a year ago, and when I arrived, I was quite keen on doing some volunteer work, and I had been exploring and trying to see what was out there. And I had come from France actually, and I had a student job where I was nannying, which I really, really enjoyed. I had made some really impactful relationships with some of my clients. And so that was also in the back of my mind at the time. And so I decided I wanted to do some volunteering and find something where I'd be engaging with people under 18. And ultimately, that's how I found the Kids Network.
Amazing. Thank you. And so I think you've pretty much both already answered my first question to you. So I'll hand over to Hend.
Thank you. Yeah, the question was what motivated you to mentor, but that was part of the introduction, which is amazing. So my question now is what impact did mentoring have on you as a mentor? This could be an emotional impact, mental, social, or any other form of impact. We can start with you, Richie, and then go to Audrey.
Yeah, sure. It had a bigger impact than I thought it would, if I'm brutally honest. Yeah, with my new profession of counselling, it enhanced my active listening skills. It enhanced my communication skills, and I benefited from the boundaries and the routine. And it reflected in my private life where one day a week I'd spend 3 hours with a mentee, and I'd have to think about what I could do, what we could go, what my mentee would want to do, you know. And yeah, it really enabled me to re-engage with my empathy and my congruence. And also, it made me realize that I'm not as quick as 100 meters than I thought I was. Because on our first day, my mentee threw down. He was like, "There's a 100-meter track over there, soldier boy. Let's go work out who's the quickest." He destroyed me. But must work on fitness. No, mentoring for me, it gave not only that my mentee consistency and a voice, it gave me that as well. And we were there on a 1 year journey together. And to see where my mentee was at the start to where they were at the finish, yeah, it just shows that human connection at a prominent part in someone's life is so valuable.
Thank you so much, Richie. How about you, Audrey?
Yeah, I think for me being new to London, it really made me look at London as a city in a new light. I hadn't thought of it from the perspective of a young person, and similar to Richie, like what activities can we do and things like that. So that was really eye-opening. Thinking about, for example, my mentee loves going to the park. He loves playgrounds. So I'm now always on the hunt for a playground. If I see one in the distance in a new neighborhood, I have to check it out. I have to see if there's a park that he might enjoy so that I can tell him about it. And so in addition to that as well, now when I'm talking to people around town, I bring up the Kids Network all the time. I bring up the types of activities that I do with my mentee. And people have a lot of great ideas. They're like, oh, have you done this? Have you tried that? Or I get to share ideas with folks who might have young people in their lives as well. So that's been really rewarding. And also helped me, I think, find a sense of community here in London as someone who's relatively new. And additionally, I think similar to Richie, echoing what he was saying, it has had a massive impact on myself as well. It's built my confidence, I think, just to see how much impact I can have on someone. I have moments with my mentee. I remember one time he had mentioned before going to a friend's birthday party. And so the next session that we had, I was like, oh, how was your friend's birthday party? How did that go? And he was so surprised. He was like, oh my gosh, you remember that? And I was like, of course I remember that. And for me, it was just something small, something to talk about. But clearly in that moment for him, it was exciting for him to know that I cared, and, it was something that I wanted to discuss with him. So having those moments are so, so impactful and make all the time worthwhile.
This sounds amazing. And it's amazing how much connection you build also to the local area and to the community through this pairing. Um, and you touched a bit on that. So, what impact do you see mentoring had or is having on your mentee? Maybe think about their journey from when you first met the matching to where the last session was and how they were at their last session, and what have you noticed has changed, improved, or is just different about them?
I would say it was the development of themselves. When I met my mentee, they were still in like junior school, prior secondary school. So that transition from being the eldest in the year to the youngest is quite a vulnerable stage. I remember it well. We were all children once, and what I saw my mentee develop within themselves and their self confidence, their communication skills, and rather than go from this strong junior school kind of person to they maintained that, and I think they grew a little bit inside, and to see that was, yeah, it was really important to me, because that's what I really cherished from when I was that age. It was that transition when I had the mentor there when I was growing up. It was very needed because I also came from an adverse childhood experience kind of background, and I was very vulnerable. I had that person there, and I learned so much, and my self confidence, and to see that develop in my mentee was, yeah, it's truly rewarding.
Thank you so much for sharing this, Richie. How about you, Audrey?
Yeah, I think for my mentee, really having that time and space to really own and be in charge of has been really beneficial. I mean, he gets to manage everything, right? Like, we have a budget, we get to talk about how to use it. He gets to choose what he wants to do. It's a judgment-free zone, so he gets to really pick anything and everything. We've gone ice skating, we've gone to a cat cafe, which he loved. One week he was had a particular interest in like gemstones, so we went and looked at gemstones. It's a place where he can really explore anything he wants to and build his confidence. And I will say, especially at the start, it took a while for him to open up. And there were definitely moments where I could tell, in speaking with him, his confidence wasn't quite there. He expressed struggling in school, maybe not feeling like the smartest. And, also sometimes would have challenges maybe with making a decision or things like that, choosing between one thing or the other. And I think really organically, the program has given him opportunities to really face those challenges, hopefully in a really low pressure way with someone who's here to support him. And I've seen huge leaps of growth for him where, for example, I'm going back to the rocks, but he had a bunch of rocks to choose from. It took him a long time, but he settled on the perfect one for him, and he was really proud of his decision. And again, even though that sounds like something really simple, I know at the beginning of the program that was something he likely would have struggled with. So yeah, it's been massive for him.
Thank you so much. That's such a great example of just learning the skills of decision making and being confident and happy with your decision after. Just imagining how he will definitely replicate this experience in potentially bigger decisions in the future. Thank you so much, Audrey and Richie. And just letting everyone know, you can also ask our amazing mentors here questions if you would like to. I think we have a few questions in the chat to go through.
We do. I might ask a few to mentors or to Hend or Neve as well. There's been a few questions around how we measure and use metrics across the program and what if they're standardized. So obviously we use the Sterling scale of well-being to inform our surveys, but perhaps Hend, you could answer that in terms of our standardized measuring.
Absolutely. Thank you, Freya. Yeah, as Freya said, we use the Sterling measure for our surveys. So in terms of how we collect impact, it starts with the baseline. So we collect baseline survey from the child before they meet their mentor. So this is at the induction or before the matching. And then we have a 6 months workshop with the child to see how the program is progressing. This is qualitative and quantitative. So we use a 6-month survey, which addresses the same points in that they have answered at the start, as well as a workshop where they talk freely about what they're liking about the program, what would they change, what they would like to do in the remaining 6 months, and address any challenging or anything that they want us to support them or their mentor with. And this is through a visit that the program manager has to the school when the child hits the 6-month mark. And then we have the ending survey with the child, which again addresses the same things to measure progress at the end. We collect these same surveys, baseline, 6 months and ending, from caregivers as well, and schools, as well as mentors, to see how, again, everyone is progressing. And I would say the majority of the long-term impact points are included in our surveys that are, again, given to all children on the program. Hope this answers the questions.
Thank you. And then we had another question around training. So what does that training entail?
Yeah, of course.
Would you like to take that one?
Absolutely. So our training is 1 day in person, and it covers a whole range of bases. There's also actually a little pre-training video as well, which basically gives an overview of some of the more theoretical side of safeguarding concepts and early intervention and trauma-informed mentoring. And then our in-person training day, it's really focused on a lot of scenarios. So it's very interactive, and we're basically preparing mentors for every possibility that might arise based on our key pillars of mentoring, and also obviously going into depth about our safeguarding policies and all that kind of stuff as well. And then once mentors are on the program, we also have mentor modules. So these are, I can't remember what they all are off the top of my head. I know there's an additional one in safeguarding.
Are you talking about the mentor modules that they complete throughout their journey?
Yes, when they're on the journey, yeah.
So we have the safeguarding module, we have child-led mentoring, we have trauma-informed mentoring, goal-setting module, and we're adding a new one. I forgot what it's called. I'll remember and add it to the chat.
Great. And there was another couple of questions that I've answered just around budget and what the activities entail. A really interesting question here. How would you say mentoring differs to social prescribing or befriending? And maybe, I don't know, mentors could answer this as well. Where does mentoring sort of fit in to these various community-based or initiatives?
Should I answer that from my perspective?
Yeah.
So, yeah, all of the activities are led by the mentee, and from the start, when I first met my mentee, I introduced myself and said, I have a year to spend with you. It's not a friendship as such. It's where you walk alongside them in their kind of like vulnerable time in their life. You don't contact them outside of that hour. So or 3 hours, what they kind of understand is that 1 day a week, they will see you, and they get to regulate and and experience to live that week. And then at the end of that week, they'll then share it with you. And then you do your mentoring in that space. So they do test the boundaries at the start. Can I speak to you outside? Can I do this? And you just remind them that, well, I reminded him, I'm a 52-year-old man, you're a 12-year-old boy. We're going to share this time together to both grow from one another. So it's not a friendship as such. It's a journey together where we're both going to develop and grow over that year.
That is an amazing answer, Richie. And probably from a technical point of view of the program design, social prescribing is when GPs, I think it's an initiative by GPs to kind of give support to non-medical issues that they see that children and families are facing. I would say mentoring could come as part of that, but it is a lot more consistent and it is a lot more targeted to children's emotional, psychological, and social well-being and development. And it is a lot more consistent. You meet the same person every week for a whole year, and you work on these goals with this same person to have an outcome after 12 months.
Yeah, I think that's the bit where there's like a nice overlap with social prescribing, is then the connecting them to support. So when mentoring ends, they still have these community connections of, oh, well, with my mentor, I visited these places or I created this interest. And when mentoring ends, they still have that. So I guess in that way, it's similar to social prescribing.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's one more question if we have time. I think it will kind of round it off quite nicely. Gemma's question was, do you involve children in the design or evaluation of the program rather than just their own individual experience? And that's around co-production.
Absolutely. So I can take this one, and please do add if I do forget anything. We had 2 child panels so far, and these child panels are panels of children who have completed the program, and we have them to consult children on the structure of the program, etc. So the first panel, we ran through the existing structure of the program with the children. What would they change? What they liked most about it? And what would they keep as is? And then we had another child panel last year where the children designed the induction of the program. So they talked about how the program runs, what it is, the design of the program, and we recorded that in a video that we use in schools to induct new children. So children hear about the program first from other children who have been on the program. We have child's voice strategy that we will start working on this year. So this will include focus groups where we go to schools and talk to children directly around their concerns or topics that they are interested in and specific themes that come up in sessions. Just for context, we receive a session report after every session that the mentor has with their mentees. This includes the entire conversation that they've had in that session, the activity that they've done, what the mentee shared around their concerns, what they are like, what they're thinking about. So we will take the main themes and form focus groups to talk to children directly about these and to involve them in hopefully forming the solution to what's concerning them. This is part of our focus groups that are coming. I think this question is for you, Priya.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions.
Around if they can refer patients from GP practice.
I think the best way to do that would be email us at info@, and I'll pop the email, and then we can discuss how that would work and what we would need to know to move forward with that.
Well, yes, we are at time, but I would just like to say a massive thank you to the Kids Network for such a thought-provoking and interesting session. It's such a pity we have to stop now, as I know there are lots more questions. But as you can see, their contact details are here on the screen, so please do. I'm sure they'd be very, very happy if you got in touch with them and carried on the conversation. But yeah, massive thank you for such a great presentation.
Thanks so much for having us, Gaetano, and thanks everyone for coming to listen to us.
Thank you so much for attending.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Massive thank you to our mentors. Thank you for being here.
Okay.